Hello Exile and welcome back to Before You Buy. This is the Illusionist edition. In this episode we'll be going over the armor, the back attachment, the weapon, portal, cyclone, everything. In the interest of saving as much time as possible, I've moved the all classes preview that's generally at the start to the end of the video. Anybody who wants to see how bad the Templar shoulder clipping has gotten can use the timestamps. Skip to that. Or to any other part for that matter, it will work for all of it. I will be going a bit faster than usual as there's a lot to cover, so if I do miss anything you guys want to see, leave a comment either here on YouTube or on Reddit when I post this video, and I'll do my best to include that in the new series that I'm starting up on my channel next week called Community Combos, because I want to try and interact with the community as much as possible, but also like have some fun doing it and make some more videos. I think it'd be good for me. So yeah, let's get started. So I just want to start the video by continuing discussion that Jacarab had already started on Reddit, and in his video he came to the conclusion that the area of effect of the Illusionist Cyclone was not accurately represented, and beyond that, based on like the visibility and also like the price alone, that you are better off running something like the blue Cyclone Effect. I appreciate the video. Here is where I disagree. Now the main reason I disagree with his conclusion in that video is for the sake of something called clarity. Now, as you can see, the Cyclone Effect is divided into three main parts, or you can divide it into three main parts. You have, of course, the base effect that surrounds the character. There's these kind of faint blue lines and like gray shadows that happen in between that. And of course, the third part being the outer limit, the oscillating particles and the odd geometry that forms at the limit of the cyclone, demonstrating the area of effect. Now, just to demonstrate how accurate this area of effect is, you can see as these guys approach the area, as soon as they come in contact with that blue line, they die. And my camera might be in the way here. I'm watching it. Oops. Sorry about that. But anyway, the point is, it's incredibly accurate as a descriptor of the maximum area of effect. Now, the reason why I feel like there's nothing else happening in that area of effect between the outer limit and the character is so that we can see what's happening on the ground. It's the same reason why people prefer something like Radiant Righteous Fire over something like Celestial Righteous Fire, is because they can actually see what is happening underneath your character. You don't ever want to be dying to something like Exploding Delve Crickets simply because you cannot see the ground that's between your character and that effect. Now, the other point that he brought up in his video was pricing, and that is a decently valid argument. Something like Blue Cyclone adds an aesthetic change to your character while also being 90% cheaper, and there's also good options such as white and, you know, dark and Sawblade and of course Illusionist. So there's lots to choose from, and depending on the options you want to go for, you may end up going for something like blue or white, and it's really cheap effect, and they're just great to have if you play Cyclone. You can change it up on the fly. But I feel like the main strength of Illusionist and why you would consider it in the first place is, again, for clarity's sake. It's definitely something that I feel adds a bit of choice to the various particles that you have available to you as a Cyclone player. And if you do play Cyclone, weigh in on the particles in the chat below. I really don't play it myself. I've never actually like leveled or like played a Cyclone character in maps for any amount of time. So if you feel that I'm wrong on that argument, or you want to weigh in a bit more on like the other particle effects, go ahead. I'd love to hear your discussion. The next thing I want to talk about while we're on the bridge before we hit the armor set in the review is the portal effect. Now, this thing is beautiful. I absolutely love this effect. The main thing that gets me here is I feel it's a bit of wasted potential. I mean, it has a good despawn animation, it has a really cool spawn animation, and has really great geometry. Honestly, I feel that you could just reuse the assets that you use here, change nothing at all, and add this to a totem, and you would just make more money. Free idea for you, GGG. Just attach these assets to a totem, because I feel like the totem boys would love that too. It's been a while since you guys got any kind of love other than the void totem. So yeah, as far as portal effects go, it's really unique, it's really interesting, it's super futuristic. And when used on a map device, these things don't clip at all with each other. Like, this is the kind of portal symmetry on a map device that I just dream about. This is just beautiful. So I feel if anything, you guys did too good a job on the portal effect, and it's something that you should definitely capitalize on and reuse those assets on a totem as well. Thank you. And we're moving on to armor. As far as like assassin themed, like dexterity, like, you know, just like assassin garb armor sets go, I feel like this is the best one that we've ever gotten. It's really clean. It's really well textured. There's no like crazy clipping or anything like that that happens on the body. It's just good. Every about 10 to 15 seconds, there's a phasing or like a cloak effect that happens on the armor. This effect is simultaneously the best and the worst thing that happens about the armor. Best being is it adds something really unique to this armor that's not like a transferable character effect, even though I wish it would be transferable because like the effect that it generates is really cool and I'd love to try it on different armors. So it's unique in that respect. Worst part being this has some really interesting and really weird effects with a lot of different things that are already in the game. And I'm just going to show you a few examples of that here. It's like any kind of helmet or like glove or like back attachment that has an associated particle effect, the geometry of the model will phase out, the particle effect will not. So like the Arctic skull is gone for the most part, but the particle effect is still there. Now as far as unintended interactions go, stuff like Dredgeforge is just broken. The glow effect that's usually on the helmet is just completely gone. Engraved Skull is the exact opposite. The helmet is gone and the glow effect that's usually there, it's all that it is now. Now, a good rule of thumb with this armor set is anything that has feathers, harpy helmet, gloves, any of the wing attachment that have feathers is just hopelessly broke. The reason for that being is when the armor phases out and then phases back in, anything that's like textured onto a transparent layer, like feathers generally are to save performance, that transparent layer becomes a visible black. And you can see there along the edges of this helmet and gloves. And I'll show you more with like various wings later, like that black layer just becomes completely visible. And generally that's like used to save like performance costs. Like it would cost way more to render individual feathers than it is to just render the texture over some flat geometry. So generally that's not a bad decision. I just don't understand why the transparency effect is breaking when it's cloaked like this. It's not all bad though. Stuff like the monolith crown has a really cool effect where the geometry will fade out, but like those glows that are still happening, and like some of the geometry will still be there enough to like see some, like have a cool effect. I think my favorite example of this having a really cool effect is definitely like the Spectre helmet and hood, where when it phases out, the green flame that's there on the helmet is still there, but the helmet itself is gone. Now let's talk about how this affects back attachments. For the most part, most back attachments are relatively unaffected. Azurite isn't unaffected. It becomes black crystal. And also every time it phases out, the texture like whites out and like, I don't know. I don't understand what's happening there technically that's like causing that specific thing. I wonder if Azurite back attachment or just like transparent texture populated by a blue glow inside. I wonder if that's how they made it and that's why this is doing this. Stuff like the Blood Knight wings, that's going to have the black texture issue. Corsair back attachment, that's also going to have it. Not as noticeable though, but like when you switch to a different body armor, you can clearly see the tattering, but when you switch back, it's gone. Stuff like Oriath, even though I would never personally use these, is affected. Sin and Innocence, this is like one of the most notable culprits, and this is not like the first time I've seen this this texture break happen with these specific wings. I feel like this also happens when you have a character that utilizes phasing. I just haven't played one in so long I can't really confirm if that still happens. If you do, let me know. And then of course stuff like the new Wild Wings is also affected. So just like keep that in mind when you're picking your back attachment. Lots of stuff still works though. Stuff like the Void Wings has a really, really interesting appearance when they like form in and out when they fade, so that's like a really cool interaction. Stalker, however, just doesn't care about your cool new effect. It just does what it wants. No phasing for it. Interestingly enough, Spirit Wings or any form of them are like completely unaffected by anything that this armor does to them. They don't break in any way, they don't phase in any way, they just again, they're like Stalker, they just don't care. As if something like the Come At Me Bro back attachment wasn't already weird enough, this effect completely breaks its biceps. It just takes it to a whole nother level of weird. Like I actually kind of like, if you're wearing this you already really like weird stuff, so I mean like you probably like it. Now as for the Illusionist back attachment itself, I actually really like this. It's unusual, it's futuristic, it's what? Apparently it phases too, and apparently it phases parts of other armor it's attached to. Just Crucible? Nothing else? You don't want to do it to anything else? No? Okay, so this is why this armor is so fun to me. It's fun to like try out what works and what doesn't, because there's so much going on here that I've like never had to play around with before. So like trying to figure out what works is just like watch it do it again. So now it's not phasing anymore. I don't know what's happening. But I mean it's a cool design. Like I love the back attachment. It's like the Crucible one, but like it's smaller and it's accessible. Like it's not $400. Like this is something anybody can get if they like that design. It's not like limited by a crazy price. That's why I like it so much. Like the armor set is capable of some really cool combos. Like you can play around with it in a lot of really fun ways. And honestly, it's just really fun to play with. Like, I mean, like, it's really fun to play the game of like what disappears and what doesn't. And like it extends to even weapons too, like it also makes the geometry of whatever weapon you're holding disappear, which is actually a good way to segue into, I'm going to take this off because we're never going to get through this if it constantly keeps disappearing. It's a good way to segue into the Dark Prism weapon. I feel like GGG is really starting to hit their stride with these new kind of like shifting form weapon skins. Because like before, when you purchased a weapon skin, it was good on one base type. And if you weren't using that base type or build, too bad. But it's now, as we're getting like farther and farther into them developing these like form shifting weapons, that's added value. That's a great job, like utilizing a concept and a design and taking it further than like you would expect. And it's a good example of like GGG in general as a company. Like they do this with so many different things. It's cool to see them doing it with MTX too. I think my favorite skin is definitely the staff. But the staff has this weird thing where weapon effects form like a square around the edge of it. So like using weapon effects with that one isn't really too much of an option depending on what weapon effect you use. Undertaker there is really cool, but like it doesn't work with everything like that. So like the square kind of like happens depending. Let's see like something with trailing. See, that's cool. See, that's a cool effect. I don't know, I'd take it back. I think that square bend is actually kind of cool depending on what weapon effect you use. Again, really interesting why it does that. In addition to just being a really cool design by itself, the Illusionist weapon has like a persistent weapon effect that happens whether or not something's equipped. Is like this blue trailing. Dark Prism, like the previous like all-encompassing weapon skin had the same thing, but it wasn't as noticeable as this one. This one's just like, this one comes from the center of the blade and it's like very bright, very noticeable. But this leads to some really interesting combos that, you know, otherwise wouldn't have happened before. We can now mix colors on weapon skins. Take something like a Crucible, for example, and it just like bleeds into the trailing that's already there. Something like Cult of Darkness is a really interesting combo. Or like Madcap, darkening out the blade and just like adding more purple to it is also really cool. As far as the actual Illusionist weapon effect goes, I really don't like it too much. It does this like fracturing geometry effect across like various different blades. And I really just feel like it breaks the flow of tons of different weapons, depending on what it's used on. You can see they're just doing numbers on the Dark Prism geometry. Or like what even is the Mystic Staff? Yeah, just keep that in mind. If you want an Illusionist weapon, skip the weapon effect, just get the weapon itself. I'd like in the future for GGG if they would like, you know, they're already including swords, maces, two-handed swords, axes. They're already including basically almost every base type in the game. I would love if they would just go the extra mile and just throw a wand and dagger skin in there. Like, why not? Like, you're already giving us so much with a weapon. Why not just like, I don't know, I just top it out and just make it like a weapon skin. You just like buy it and it's good for all base types and you don't ever have to worry about it. I feel like they've done so much advancement that that's like the logical next step when it comes to it. Of all like the interesting effects that are happening though, there are some really cool ones. And honestly, the best one that I just want to show you guys real quick is Celestial. So, and again, Celestial is already like the best character effect, but there's something that happens whenever you're moving. So whenever you're moving, additional lights form within the Celestial character effect within the body to create like a trailing effect, which whenever you're moving form like a constellation, which is only visible because of the skin. I feel like that's a really clever interaction that only happens because this skin can do that. And it's like something you would only ever see if you were playing a character with phasing, which not everybody gets. So to just cap my thoughts out for this set, I really just feel like Illusionist is a cool and really clean MTX set that complements any collection really nicely. It ticks all the boxes of something futuristic like a Crucible, but also at the same time is accessible to someone who just wants to buy one armor set and doesn't want to invest a ton of money into a bunch of supporter packs. And I feel it's a real strength of the set. I feel like it has some really strong points like the weapon and the Cyclone Effect and also the back attachment without having to opt into its weaker points like the actual weapon effect, which I feel like you can just set aside if you don't like. I'm just going to leave this here as an apology. I'm like halfway through editing this and I realized I forgot the aura and I can't really log back in right now because Steam is being dumb. But as far as the aura goes, like, my initial impression of it was I wasn't impressed. As far as I got to play around with it in game, it doesn't pivot along the ground as I like auras to do. It's kind of just like a static effect while you're walking, and so that doesn't really lend itself to the believability that it's an aura. It really looks really artificial And also if you like pause right here, you can see that there's like a off green coming from the inside parts of the sigil, and that kind of like throws off the coherence of the aura with the theming of the rest of the set. So I don't really like it too much. If you do, that's cool, I guess. But yeah, I'm just sad I didn't actually get into the video, but it looks like, based on like the amount of dislikes here, that yeah, see, this guy gets it right here. I went from, hey, that looks good, to never mind when he started moving. Flying carpet mount. That's pretty accurate. This thing's a flying carpet. So yeah, guys, I really appreciate you tuning in for this video. This was a long one, and honestly, like, going forward, the videos are probably going to be a lot longer than they generally otherwise would be with the new like MTX release style that we're getting from GGG. We're kind of getting like a hype week of like the various things that go with the armor set. At the end of the week, we get the armor set, and then just like, then I have so much to cover, and you know, tons and tons of possible combinations to go over to see like what works and what doesn't. So there's just a lot, and there's also a lot going on in my channel right now. I just did an opening of about 100 mystery boxes on my channel that I didn't post to Reddit because I feel like it's really frivolous and not really something that should go on Reddit. It doesn't really add anything to the community. But if that's the type of video that you would love to watch, as I like play around with the new stuff and get it, and am utterly not surprised by the duplicates that I get, then check it out. I'm also going to be doing a community combos video on my channel very soon, just like throwing together like stuff from the mystery box and stuff from this armor set, and probably the next one if we get it by the end of the next week, and then I'll do that too. So go ahead and throw some comments into what you want to see in that video, and I'll do my best to try out like every combination that I get. Oh yeah, and we also hit 1,500 subscribers in like the last 2 weeks, so thanks for that, guys. I love you. So anyway, yeah, thanks for tuning in. Up next is going to be the all classes preview. Like I said, I was going to put it at the end of the video, so the runtime didn't drag on for anyone who didn't want to see that, and for anyone that did, they could just skip to it and not worry about all the fluff that I stuff in these videos. Gotta get that ad revenue. I'm trying to support an MTX channel. Eek. But if you guys do want to support me, you can always like the content, subscribe, and leave comments. I love comments. I love reading comments about what combos you want to see and what you thought I should have covered, what you thought I shouldn't have covered. It's just always good to hear from you guys. So if you do like the videos, just tell me. Keep me alive. Thanks.